So yet another found footage film we watched, this time because of the found footage group that I'm in. The writer-director of this film, Javier Attridge, wrote me and was like, hey, you want to check out my film, Wekufe? And I was like, sure, why not? We're the found footage channel now.
Yeah.
Like, we were the slasher channel. Now we've become the found footage channel, and I'm okay with that. Okay, I'll read the IMDb synopsis here. A student travels with her boyfriend to Chile. How do you say this? It's not Chile. It's Chiloe. Chiloe.
I don't know.
Remote.
Yeah.
Patagonia Island in southern Chile. To investigate the link that exists between the high number of sexual-related crimes and the myths and legends that surround this mysterious place. The myths and legends? The hell?
Myths and legends.
Oh, myths in legends. That's lame. Just put and. Okay, so I think the standout of this film for me is the chemistry between the two leads, right? You got a couple here, and they very much feel like a couple. So I don't know if they're actually in a relationship or not, but they convey a very, realistic couple, and they're entertaining, and they do a good job getting us towards the climax. This film is only an hour and 8 minutes long, and it is in Spanish, so subtitles, and the subtitles on Tubi aren't great, but overall I liked the film okay. I just, because it is a horror movie, because we talk about this all the time, I did enjoy the setup, and this movie is primarily set up. Imagine the opening 10 or 15 minutes of the Blair Witch Project, but extrapolate that to 45 minutes, right, where she's just kind of going around and interviewing, and her and her boyfriend are bantering back and forth about the project, and then interviewing, and then bantering back and forth about the project, and then interviewing. And he kind of keeps talking about how he wants to make a horror movie, a found footage horror movie.
Yeah.
But all they really ever do in this is kind of document this legend.
Right.
So I don't know if there was an intention of also doing the found footage horror movie in addition to this. He was shooting two different rolls of film for it, but I always got the impression that they were just doing this documentary, and she was legitimately interviewing the governor of the island. So this is a serious documentary interview about this myths and legends and whatever. So I think what I was trying to get at is I like the setup, I like all the Blair Witchy opening stuff with the interviews and all that, and I like where we're going, but when it comes to the horror that primarily is at the end, when in the last 15 minutes, even though there is some payoff to it, I never felt any tension or horror scares, right? I never got ooh, this is creepy. The only thing was that band for 2 seconds where you were I don't like them. Yeah. But other than that, the horror for me just didn't work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that their chemistry was really wonderful, and I think that everybody that they interview and talk to, and everywhere they go, all of it feels super authentic and genuine.
Yep.
So I love that in found footage films, when they can really capture something that feels real. I think it's super important. I think this film does a great job at that. And I do like the setup as well. I think that there's I agree with you about the horror, though. I feel like I wasn't really, I didn't have a sense of dread or fear mounting. But there are there's some setups to things, based on what they're researching and things that start happening to one of them. I liked those tie-ins, and I was oh, okay, there's gonna be like this is what's going on. But for some reason, I just think that I just never got like really like scared about anything happening, even though I knew things were going to happen, if that makes sense. And the ending, like there is an okay payoff. But it's just, it's more, it feels, I think this has like the label as thriller on there, which I think is...
It says horror thriller.
Yeah, horror thriller. Well, I was just going to say I think the thriller part is maybe more applicable than, but I don't know, the horror I guess is there. It just isn't as strong as I would have wanted it to be, as like for like found footage horror.
But as far as a storytelling standpoint, I still think like everything was conveyed in the end. Like everything paid off and like what they were setting up.
Yes.
Right? There wasn't anything that felt like when it ended where I was like, well, what was any of that meaning? Right? Like they set things up, and while I do think you and I kind of were very we guessed pretty much everything that was going to happen in that way, because they do kind of heavy hand some of that stuff where they're like, this is happening and this thing does this, and you're like, okay, so that's gonna happen and this is gonna happen, and then of course those things happen, and that's to be expected. It's just the horror for us just didn't pay off in a scary way. It paid off in a story way, but not in a scary way.
So I think like the film is really strong with the acting and the atmosphere, or like the authentic atmosphere, I should say. And the story, the writing is all good and everything. It's just that we would have liked more scares, I suppose.
Sure, I mean,
there's not necessarily jump scares, but just
there's two major factors to a found footage film, and this executes one of them, and not the other one for us. And the first one being, and probably, I don't know if it's more important. I think they're kind of equally important. But number one is the verisimilitude of the film, right? It's convincing us that it's real. Yeah. Right? Like, and putting in elements that make it feel real, right? And then the second being the scare, the horror, it's a horror movie, so you're there for that. But with a found footage film, as I had said, there's that necessity to me, for sure, and it goes hand in hand with the horror. You have to make us believe what we're watching is real, because that's what you're going for, right? Yeah. That's something, in other narrative filmmaking, you have to do that to some degree, but there is a disconnect that it's a movie, right? Like we just went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3 tonight, and it's like, when we're watching Peter Quill and everybody and Rocket and all these, like, there's this total disconnect because it's fantasy and it's like, they're in space and all this shit, and it's like, we can't connect with any of that. They just exist
in a totally different realm.
They still make that feel real to them,
right?
But to us, it doesn't feel real. But with found footage, you don't have that. You have to make it feel like this is footage someone found of humans on Earth that exist in my reality. Right. And so I think it's, that's accomplished here. And so
I do too.
That's what's impressive to me, because I think that's probably the harder of the two, but they're both complicated and they're both necessary. But storytelling worked, the reality worked, but the horror just was lackluster. That's that. So it is on Tubi or Plex, whichever you prefer. Tubi. So let us know if you watch it. I know found footage fans are always looking for something that's halfway decent. Because there's there's a ton of it, but there's a ton of garbage. And I think people come here to be like, is it worth my time or not? Yeah. I think, if you're a found footage enthusiast who doesn't mind subtitles and isn't expecting too much of a horror payoff and is really just there for kind of this specific story, the Wekufe thing, that is something we're not familiar with at all. I had to Google what the hell it even was and everything. But it's always cool to see other myths and legends outside of the United States. Something that we're familiar with, like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster or whatever the hell. Yeah. Right? Like there's other cultures that have other things here, and it's cool to see about them. So if you're familiar with this, and especially if you're like from Chile or something, then yeah, I think absolutely this will have a cultural relevance to you. That's an absolute must. So if you speak Spanish and you know anything about the Wekufe, or if you're from Chile or any of those things and you're a found footage fan, then absolutely check it out. Yeah. But if you're not a found footage fan, definitely not. Yeah. So let us know if you watch it. Okay, guys?
Bye.
Bye.